Hi, I'm Suzanne Ratti, and I'm back with Ideas 360 Live, where we connect you with the businesses, the resources that you need to know. And today we are with Chris at Cheaper Than a Geek. Chris, I got to start out this program by asking you, what the heck's up with the hair, man?
This is a byproduct of having not been to the barber since early February.
So you're sporting it.
Oh
You're
yeah.
rolling with it.
It's hard to get in and out of the car now, but it's been fun, and I figured that gave me the creative license to go ahead and try to grow a beard for the very first time. So I've also been diligently working on that. You know, it's
So you're
fun.
still working on that, I see.
Oh yeah. But it's funny how the mind works. So, you know, everything's obviously the world's changing, you know, and I'm doing the mental math and I'm like, I'm not going to be able to get a haircut for a long time. And I was just like, okay, I guess I'll grow a beard. And then a couple days later, they shut down my car wash. And I'm like, oh my God, I can't get a car wash anymore. And that's what freaked me out. I was like, oh no.
Well, I'm glad to have you on today. We've been interviewing lots of business owners from lots of different fields, and I know that you're with Cheaper Than a Geek. Just introduce yourselves to the audience who may not already know you.
Oh, sure. So I'm the chief nerd at Cheaper Than a Geek. Our big claim to fame is we help small businesses take the SH out of IT. That's what we do. So we're all professional nerds, got the nerd glasses handy. But what we've done, and it's rather unusual in this space, is we figured out how to give enterprise level IT support to companies as small as one person. So the bulk of our clients are actually 1 to 10, sometimes 1 to 20 person companies, because we figured out how to give you reliable, efficient IT with safety and security without breaking the budget. So that's kind of how we roll.
So kind of a shout out to all the small business owners out there who are trying to figure out how to go virtual. That you've probably been overwhelmed during COVID, I'm guessing.
Oh yeah, it's been crazy. And of course we had plenty of clients and new clients hit us up and say, okay, we got to work remotely tomorrow. You know, how do we do that? But, you know, to my surprise, we had quite a few clients that didn't say anything. They just kind of figured they had it figured out and they did it on their own. And what we found out later is most of the time they didn't do it right. You know, there's a huge security gap in there somewhere along those lines. So it's usually a good idea to get a pro involved, if nothing else, just the planning of it, just to make sure that you're doing it safely.
So, you know, I know you've addressed this recently with COVID. But before COVID, you've done this for me. I know you've done it for a lot of other business owners I know. But working virtually does change the technology considerations for businesses. So what does that look like?
Yeah, so there's quite a few things you got to factor in. You know, how do you access your sensitive data? For some companies, the transition was actually kind of easy because they may have already been using some sort of cloud type solution. Like let's say Salesforce. You know, if you're already using Salesforce online, then it's a pretty trivial event to hop in at home and do the same thing. So in that regard, for some folks it was easy, but if you got into situations like maybe there was a server at the office that everybody shared files with, well now nobody's at the office, how do you do that? So those kind of things kind of threw some folks through a loop. So it was interesting to watch because for some, the transition was just a matter of they're just in a different place and everything is exactly the same. And for others, it was a total nightmare because they just weren't set up to work that way.
Mm-hmm. So as you've been helping businesses transition through, you know, the virtual environment, what about home network and laptops? I mean, I know personally, I know quite a few people who, when they moved to working virtually, they had to pick up their own laptop. They might have had a desktop at work, maybe not a laptop at work. So what about home networks and laptops? I mean, what do people need to be concerned with as far as using their own equipment and those sorts of issues?
Yeah, that's probably the scariest part of all of this is in a typical work environment, the employer has in place some sort of like firewall, some sort of network security. They usually have fairly good antivirus or malware protection. Um, the servers are secured, all that good stuff. But now you've got a scenario where you might be using a laptop that was, say, your daughter's laptop for school, and it doesn't have any protection on it, or it's not very good, or it's expired. Very few home networks have enterprise-grade security on it, so that means that the network security leaves a lot to be desired. And what all this means ultimately is that the odds of you being compromised in some capacity are going to shoot through the roof. So that's the most important thing to be concerned about with this whole work from home thing.
So how do you protect that for clients? Do you have specific antiviruses? Like what's some of the solutions? If I'm working from home and I go, yeah, I don't know that I'm protected at all. I pick up the phone, I call you. Like, what are some of the go-to solutions that you typically look at or recommend?
Absolutely. So it's kind of a holistic approach. It's not a one size or one silver bullet type of thing for everything. But with the network piece, the go-to solution forever has been you put in an enterprise grade firewall, but that's very expensive. Even if you just have one location, and if everybody's working from home, now you've really got lots of locations. But you could do a lot of that with very good network security software that's installed on the computer. So that's how we tend to tackle that from a cost-effective posture. And then you kind of touched on it earlier. Good malware protection is absolutely essential. The products that we use talk to our office, so we make sure that they're working properly all the time, which is a very big concern. And then kind of rounding all of that out with the security pieces, you've heard of like Windows updates, and Adobe will release patches. It's very important that you implement all the security patches. Most folks are bothered by it. It's like, oh my gosh, I got to reboot my computer again. I'll do it later, and it doesn't end up happening. So we make sure that those patches go into effect after, and this is a very critical part, after we vetted them to make sure that they won't break your computer, because that's the other end of that. So, it's just kind of a balancing act between security and usability.
So I know one of the big reasons that I started working with you a few years ago was because you have products that monitor my systems. And, one of the things you said, and this was a few years ago, so I don't know if it's still relevant, but you said, how do you know if your computer's been compromised until you get a notification that says it's been compromised? And you have stuff that actually monitors that.
Yep, exactly. So, it's funny, there's kind of a quasi joke in my industry that 20% of all small businesses have been compromised, and the other 80% have and just don't know it yet. You don't know what you don't know. The bad guys don't generally run around waving a red flag and be like, hey, we got all your stuff, So, we can see intrusion attempts. I was on the phone with a client, guess it was 2 days ago. And I said, hey, you've got a computer on your network that is trying to attack another computer on your network. What's going on with that first computer? Has anything changed lately? Because yesterday they tried 23,000 times to log into that computer. There's something going on. And turned out the originating computer, the employee left the organization. So there's nobody sitting at it. And, on a long enough timeline, if you try, in this example, 23,000 times a day to get into a computer, you're going to eventually get into that computer. That particular computer had admin access to the whole network, and it's in the financial services industry, so you can imagine the damage that could be caused. And had it not been for us watching that, it would have happened, at some point. Maybe it would have taken a week, maybe it would have taken a month, but it would have happened. But if you're looking out for it, you'd be like, okay, what's going on? And you stop it. it's really the best way of doing things.
Yeah, I think it's an often overlooked area, especially for solopreneurs and small businesses, because they figure, it's just me and my laptop, or maybe they have somebody helping them out on a now and then basis. But I really feel like it's always been a priority. But I feel like with COVID and with so many people working virtually, there's got to be more risks out there now for home networks. Yes.
Absolutely. And what's funny is, of course, nobody expected this pandemic to occur. So it's been interesting to see what some of the fallout has been. And what we're seeing is bad guys are falling all over themselves, purporting scams, ratcheting up attacks. It's just been absolutely unreal, because they're considering this, a golden opportunity to get over on folks. So it's security's always been important, but it's never been more important than right now. It's really getting kind of out of control.
So moving on, I've heard anyway, a lot of risks initially with Zoom and some of those kinds of platforms. Can you talk to us about any other risks that we need to know about that aren't maybe as obvious as some of the virtual risks we've just discussed?
Sure. Some of these risks, by the way, in my mind, keep in mind, I'm all about security, but some of them are not a big deal, in my opinion. There was some concern that Zoom wasn't encrypting the traffic the way that they said they would. And of course, you should never misrepresent yourself. But if you think about what a typical Zoom meeting entails, it's not generally a very security conscious affair. You're talking about something that could have just as easily happened in public. So I think some folks are just kind of making a big deal out of that. I was surprised to see that there was some pushback at the state level, where maybe you had the Secretary of Department of Commerce talking about SBA and statewide loans for small businesses, and they were prohibited from being on certain types of Zoom calls. Well, if you think about it, it's public information on a website. Nobody's talking about anything secret. So I think some of that was actually an overreaction.
Mm-hmm.
But really, the thing to look out for is phishing attacks. They've been creeping up for years, but they've been getting better and better. They're really, really starting to get convincing. And no matter how good your security is, if you give the bad guy your username and password to, say, your email, you've got a problem, and in the right set of circumstances, folks do that. They fall for it all the time. In that regard, we're big fans of what we call phishing simulation. So we set up very convincing phishing campaigns, and we have folks, we push it out to the employees, and then you get feedback. Okay, Sally over in accounting clicked on it and did this and did that, and then you can have a meaningful conversation, show them what to look out for. Like, this is, these are the red flags you should have been looking for. And what I found interesting about these simulated phishing attacks is it kind of reminds me of a surveillance camera. You could install a surveillance camera and train it on, say, the cash register at an operation, and you, the business owner, know it's not hooked up to anything. But the employees know about it, they see it, and all of a sudden everybody's on their best behavior. We leave it up to our clients, but we usually recommend that they actually tell the employees, hey, we're doing this simulated phishing thing. And all of a sudden everybody's just more aware, more vigilant, and it's that's what it's all about. It's making people, it's educating, and it's also making people care.
Yeah.
That's what it really comes down to.
Cool. All right. Well, as we wind it up, there's got to be something that we don't. So tell me you heard it here first.
Sure. Okay. It's a little nerdy, but I guess that's not going to be a surprise. So
you are the chief nerd, you said, right?
I am. I rock it as best I can. So a lot of people don't know how antivirus works, and if you know how it works, it's almost a little scary. So a computer can't tell the difference between one program or another. So a Word document in a virus to a computer more or less looks like the same thing. It's just a set of instructions it's got to do. So the way antivirus programs work is these security companies get wind of a virus, and then they add it to the list of bad things that the programs look out for, kind of like a stolen license plate on a car. But in order for that to work, that means that the virus was out in the wild for who knows how long before they realized it existed. So there's always a period of time between when an exploit goes out and folks are able to stop it and identify it, which is scary. So, and for eons, that's how antivirus programs work. Now, granted, it's better than nothing at all, but obviously that means there's a period of time where you're unprotected. We recently started using a security program that uses artificial intelligence, that instead of just looking at a list of bad things to watch out for, it's looking at all of the processes on your system, and it's asking itself, well, what is it doing? And if its behavior seems malicious in nature, it stops it right there. So now you have a situation where you can actually have what we would call zero-day security, where there is no period of time where you're a sitting duck because every process is being evaluated. So that's the future of security, and it's cool to be on the leading edge of that.
Wow, that's cool stuff. I like that. So
very nerdy.
It's not just antivirus, it's detecting antivirus behavior is basically what you're saying, right?
Yeah, virus behavior, yep.
Nice.
Yep.
Nice, I like that. Cool. Well, it's been interesting, and it's certainly been interesting to look at your hair while we interview. I have, as always, you did not disappoint. But thanks so much for being with us. And if people want to get in touch with you, let's show your stuff there. Contact Chris at Geek. I will speak a firm testimonial. I've used Chris for a number of years, and love your approach and the way you work. And you always do. You always have something new and great that nobody else has. So thanks for helping us out. And we'll be back on Ideas 360 Live. Check us out on YouTube. That's where we put all of our videos. Subscribe to our channel, and we're here to help you with the business and the resources you need to help your small business grow. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you. That was awesome.